And welcome to the In Cayman podcast here with Marco. What's up, buddy?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I was driving on West Bay Road, 7 Mile Beach Road, and I was like, yo, that looks like Marco skateboarding. And then I slowed down, and it was Marco skateboarding.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, have you approached somebody just driving and thinking that it's them? And
Right.
then it's not them, but then it actually is?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It is. And I wanted to doubt when I saw you. I was like, no. I actually, when I saw you, I had already driven past you.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. So I actually stopped. I turned around, and I needed the confirmation, and there you were. So I was pretty surprised because you don't live in Cayman.
I don't. I live in Toronto.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yet here you are in Cayman.
It's great to be back.
Yeah. So tell me about that. What's it like being back? And you've been over a year, maybe, since you've been here.
So yeah, I flew out of here in August 2022. So that was the last time I was on island.
Right.
And it's been a good year and a half since being gone. And when I was in Toronto this last summer, I had met somebody who also lived on island for as long as I had.
Mm-hmm.
She had lived here for 2 years, right before COVID went down. And her and I just bonded over having lived here for over, I was here a year and a half in total.
Right.
And we just bonded over this amazing place that not many people get to visit for that long.
Right.
So, we connected as friends hanging out, and then she was coming down on vacation to visit some of her old friends that lived on island.
Right.
And asked me to come with her for a few days. So this was a really quick trip right before the holidays.
Nice. All right. So I have a question for you, right? Because I started this podcast for lots of reasons. One of the reasons is to give people an idea of what it's like on the ground in Cayman, especially people who've never been here, right?
Yep.
And I thought, hey, it's good to interview people and give people an idea, right? There's no better way to find out than the people that actually live here. So my question to you is, when you came in 2021, was that the first time you came to Cayman?
That was the first time I ever came here. Yeah.
Right. So before you got here,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, I want to know what your perception was of Cayman before you got here and sort of what was different than when you actually got here and realized what it was like. What was the biggest difference?
That's a good question. Well, truth be told, a bit about the background and how I even made my way down here.
Right.
So I've been working in film production for the last 11 or so years. And I work with a handful of producers back in Toronto. And I was asked to come down to the island on a very spontaneous phone call when I was actually in Costa Rica at the time.
Oh, really?
I had planned to go, and I was going to go there indefinitely because work was shut down in Toronto. So I was just going to go and live in the jungle for a bit. And 2 days into my trip, I got this call from these producers that I know in Canada. And they basically said, hey, we got this job opportunity it'd be 7 months in total from when they called. So from January to August. And they said, there's going to be 4 films that we're going to be shooting. And would you like to come and film with us? You got to let us know by tomorrow. So it was very,
really?
Yeah, it was a very, I had to make some big decisions in a really short amount of time.
And this was in 2020, right? The end of 2020?
This was in 2021.
2021.
Yeah, so January 2021 is when they asked me, and I was 10 at night. And if I were to catch the flight out of Costa Rica in time, I would have had to leave the retreat I was at 4 a.m. the next morning. So I really only had
an hour
to call a cab to come pick me up the next morning. And I checked in with all my friends. I'm like, do you guys think this is a good idea to go for that long? On a very spontaneous kind of, not knowing what to expect. And they said, just, go for it. Work was very slow. So this was this would provide me with enough job security for half the year when work was shut down in Canada. So I said yes. I actually didn't know too much about the island prior to them asking me. I might have heard the name in movies or television shows, but before that, I didn't know too much, to be honest. Yeah. So the weeks leading up to flying down here, I did do some research. So I looked up some hotels, some like restaurants, just everything I could to familiarize myself with where I was about to spend for
the next 7 months.
Next 7 months,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And I guess when I did do some of that research, a lot of the restaurants that would come up were, I guess some of the bigger ones on island, some of the fancier places,
Right.
and I guess my perception of the space, you know, I think it was, especially like looking at some of the hotel I was staying at, I was going to be living out of the Kimpton,
Right.
so that had a certain charm to it,
Right.
and I started to base my perception of the island from these from these hotels and these restaurants and things.
Right.
Really not knowing what to expect at all.
Right.
So when I finally did land and the whole crew was quarantining together in the Kimpton,
Right.
and we had this WhatsApp group, and everybody starts like, you got to check this out. You have to go
Right.
to this beach. You have to go to hell. You have to
Right.
check that out. You have to like,
Right.
and I remember, being in the hotel room for 2 weeks, and you kind of like after about 10 days, you start to get a little bit disoriented. Like
Right.
you kind of start going a little stir crazy. And I remember walking out of the Kimpton and just being like, not knowing where I was. It was really coming out of like a weird dream and
Right.
stepping into this unknown world that I have the next 7 months to explore. So
Right.
like I personally like to do a lot of walking
Right.
when I visit a new country or a new city.
Right.
One of my favorite things to do is spend a day, and even if it takes me an hour or so, or what would take an Uber to get from point A to point B in a certain
Right.
amount of time, I like spending the whole day and just walking,
walking
and
that
then
route.
hitting up coffee
Whatever.
shops, whatever
Yeah,
I
yeah.
encounter.
Right.
And I remember as soon as I got out of the hotel and started walking down 7 Mile, I think I started. I think I said was kind of surprised to see how low key it was. It was like a little bit. Everything was spread out a little bit more than I thought. There was a lot of stretches of road where there wasn't really much going on.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And I was just like, oh, this is different. It wasn't until I got to Cayman Bay, which is where all the imagery and things that I was researching, I'm like, oh, cool. But like those spaces were more contained to like
Right.
smaller areas and stuff
Right,
like that. I was
right,
really
right.
surprised and really happy to see like some of the smaller places as I was walking along and started to build up my understanding of the space from
Right.
these little encounters that I would have. You
Huh.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So that must have been super crazy.
It was different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
So it sounds like you were still surprised that it was kind of an island still.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I guess coming from Toronto, is that where you spent?
Well, that's the
most of
thing.
your
So I
life?
spent my entire life in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I only the longest amount of time that I had left was for 2 months when I went to go visit India in 2016 and
Right.
2017.
Right.
And this would have been the longest time being away from home. So,
Right.
so growing up in I have a hard time sometimes going to stay at a friend's, some of my friends live out in the countryside, and it's such a slow, peaceful vibe out there that I get a little bit anxious because I'm been so used to growing up in this like crazy fast-paced city.
Yeah.
So that was over the next 7 months. It was actually it ended up being kind of a challenge for me to have left something I was so familiar with and then jumping into this new experience and not having. I mean, I left all my friends and family to basically hang out with this film crew,
Right.
and they become your family at the end of
Right,
the day. And
right.
it was just like so many different people
Right.
just all coming together and for these projects. So it was I learned a lot in that amount of time.
Huh. That must have been so crazy. Because, I mean, we quarantined, but we know what Cayman is like, right? So we knew what's outside of the doors. But, like, for you guys to just land here,
Yeah.
to immediately go into quarantine,
Yep.
for how long? 10 days? 14
It was 14 days.
Oof.
And I remember leaving the airport and then driving down 7 Mile. And that's really, it was dark outside, so we couldn't even see
it's that
anything.
right?
Yeah.
So you didn't even get to see much.
We didn't get to see anything at all.
Right.
So when I first got out of quarantine, like I said, I would walk everywhere. So I would go for these 2-hour walks.
Yeah.
Like all the way down to not all the way to more south sound.
Right.
I did some pretty long 2-hour walks a couple
Right.
of times, and
that sounds like a 2-hour walk right there.
Yeah, and there was a lot of people. It was more than once where it happened where somebody would stop it at the side of the road, and they're like, "Hey, we've seen you walking like from the Kimpton. Like, do you want to ride?" And I said yes a few times.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Huh.
But even then, like, it wasn't until when I came back the second time around, like it took a good year and a half to feel like I had a pretty good understanding of like where everything was.
Right.
So like, yeah, taking the drive out to Rum Point, and then like spending time in all these little areas, West Bay.
Right.
Like,
Right. You really got to feel those out the second year.
The second year,
Yeah,
having
kinda.
come back, and then especially, being given a car by production.
Right. Right.
I think I started to really, all the routes, like especially in Toronto, like I'm so familiar with that city. I don't have to look at a GPS or anything
Right.
like that. And by the end of my experience here, I was able to just hop in my car and not really.
Right.
I knew where I was going.
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, that's super cool, man.
really
That
cool.
was a crazy year. That was 2021. We were part of that. And was there any time where you were like, you know what, I made a mistake, and I shouldn't be here?
Yep, a lot actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was. I think having been gone for that long, I started to miss just things that I had taken for granted.
Right.
Things that I got really, really comfortable with, like
Right.
like my friends and my family, who ended up becoming like, obviously, like emotional support, like people I can like go and visit when I was like feeling down. And,
Right.
And I didn't know it, especially on the film crew. There's only one person that I had really ever worked with before.
Okay.
So it was.
Who was that?
Oh, it was Jeff Chapman.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff Chapman. Him and I had been working together for
Right,
like close
right.
to 10 years at that point.
But everyone else was pretty much new.
Everyone was new, so
Yeah.
I was like really like coming down here. I immediately started to look for things that were familiar to me, and that came in the form of like, for me, I was really big into meditation and yoga at the time,
Right.
and so I gravitated to some of the smaller, communal places on the island,
Right.
where there was like. There's Bliss Bodyworks, I believe it's called.
Right.
Every Thursday they had it's called Budo sound and music ceremonies or something like that,
Right.
and like that was my spot that I would go to and found people that I can connect with
Right.
pretty quick. And
Cool.
I'm still in touch with some of the people that I met going to those events,
Right,
because
right.
I immediately felt at home.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a bit of that, and then like I remember there was a point where like, yeah, I realized that, oh my God, I'm a month in, I had already felt a little bit homesick. I'm like,
Right.
I got 5 more months here.
Right,
I got to really
right.
like, yeah, like
Pace yourself.
pace
I guess.
myself a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that must have been tough and fun for you guys. But yeah, I remember you had set up a few yoga and meditative classes like before
Totally,
before
man.
call. and
Well,
I joined a few of them.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And like coming down here, especially during COVID, like I had spent quite a while like cultivating my own meditation practice. That's one of the reasons I went down to India,
Right.
to live in an ashram and like learn some of these techniques,
Right.
that I really started to, especially through COVID, when there wasn't any work or anything like that. I would spend almost every morning in 2020 going to the park by myself and just sitting for a couple hours and just really dropping in and going into some like really beautiful meditative states and things. And
Right.
I really practiced meditation for quite some time. And when I arrived on the island, that's all I really did. It was like my quarantine was really just like honing into my yoga practice and meditating for an hour here or there. I didn't really watch like movies or anything like that. It was
Right,
it was so interesting. So so when I had got out of quarantine, one of the first things that I did to kind of maybe find people on the crew who like I could resonate with, or that were kind of in a similar mindset.
Right.
In the WhatsApp group, I had posted, "Hey, I'm like, every morning I'm going to the beach and I'm meditating. Does anybody want to come?
Right.
And they were just like, I didn't get any reaction. I don't even think anybody had really responded or anything like that. And I'd set up a meditation group called Ocean Breath is what I called
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Yeah. And
the WhatsApp group. Right.
And I maybe got like 4 people out of the crew that joined.
Right.
And everybody was very, very interested. But in doing so, I kind of put myself out there. And when I didn't get the response that I had expected, I think I felt like a little bit vulnerable, and I was just like, oh shit. So it was very, and that was one of the challenging things for me was having done that, and then, you know, maybe getting 1 or 2 people that had come out, and you were one of them. And I just felt super grateful for whoever did come out. But then I realized that I was using that as a way to connect with people and look for people that and then when it wasn't what I had expected, I kind of I went into a little bit of a hermit mode and started to kind of process some stuff and be like, wow, I'm in a very foreign place here. And it was nice to eventually find people, like I said, at Bodyworks and Bliss and a few other places that like I had made some good friends with over the time I was here.
You know, I think when I saw that you posted that in the WhatsApp group, in the crew WhatsApp group, I thought that it was a brave post. Not that it even needs to be brave. Yeah. You're just like, hey, you know, I'm doing this thing where
I'm doing it every morning. Does anyone
want to come? Right. And I mean, I certainly approached it from that same point of view as you. It's like, okay, let's connect with people outside of the work environment.
Yeah.
And you know, where your the borders are down a bit.
Yeah.
And it definitely worked. I mean, I saw everybody that came to those practices in a different light. You know, they're human after all.
Exactly.
Right? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame that, you know, more people didn't, you know, join or want to join. I mean, I remember even myself sort of doubting, like, do I really want to do this?
Of course.
Or, you know, but it's like cool. Like you know, it's an initiative.
Yeah.
You know,
I was thinking that maybe over the next few months, it would just kind of like more people would come out and then we would have this group and maybe even, you know, go and do some breath work at lunch or like I was very, very deep into it at the time. So like for me, it was something that helped me with anxiety. It helped me with addictions. It helped me with just being disciplined and staying consistent to something. And I benefited from it so much that I was just so excited to share what worked for me. And not saying to anybody, oh, you should do this or should do that. I was just like I'm having the best time. I want to experience this with other people and make friends around it, you know? So, one of my friends that I had made was a masseuse at the Kimpton, and she'd come out to almost every single one that I had put together. I had you come through one time. I had some of the locations people. I had
the locations people.
Yeah, Michael Rocknick.
Yeah,
he came through one time, and then there was some PAs. Like it was quite a. Looking back, actually, it was pretty well received. Yeah. It was cool. And then I think at one point I just stopped doing it entirely because the reason at which I had done that was, like I said, was to connect with people. And then I think I felt pretty resolved and satisfied. And I realized that, you know what, this was really more for myself than anything else. And if people wanted to join, then great. But I think, I dialed it back a bit and just didn't really post too much in that group. But it definitely made a bit of waves. I thought, like even the producer's wife was very, very curious and interested in some of these techniques and stuff. And I was like very happy to share. I did some one-on-ones with people as well.
Okay.
So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So is that where you were in Costa Rica before you came to Cayman? Or was that like a different type of retreat?
No, it was pretty, I mean, it was my group of friends that I had like bonded with over some of these techniques over the years, like some of my best friends from the city who put together these retreats every single year. Some of them are like in Toronto, some of them are in Costa Rica and in different places in the world. Okay. And what this one was a 1 month stay at this like retreat center in the jungles of it's called Posada Natura, and it was like this kind of like, I don't know if it was a hotel or something like that, but basically my friend rents it out. He has another one coming up this February. So he rents it out for a whole month. And then people just kind of like, it's like a revolving door of people that decide to stay for the full month, 2 weeks, 1 week. And during that time, there's like practitioners and facilitators that come through, and like they might teach a breath workshop, or they might teach a meditation workshop, or they might like even belly dancing, or like some people might come in and just teach people on how to eat healthy or something like that. But yeah, it was just like at that time I had, I remember January 2021 was kind of a strange time because they were doing a second lockdown in Toronto.
Okay.
And my industry shut down. So the film industry, like there was one on the list that wasn't going to be operating during this time. And I remember with the first lockdown being like very challenging for me, for my mental health and stuff, it was a little bit risky to go on this trip. And like, you know, I had people in my family being like, oh, you're very selfish for leaving during this time. Like, you know what's going on and all this stuff. Yeah. And I was getting a lot of pushback, and I just felt it was something that like I needed to do for myself, to just go. And I was offered a free stay at this retreat because I was really well kind of integrated with the group of people that were running it. So they said, you know, come stay here for free. We see that you're not working. Just come hang out, pay for food, and you're good, man. Just like come and hang out. So I did that. And like I said, I was 2 days in to this trip, and it was 4 or 5 hours away from any airport. It was like really, really secluded. Yeah. So when I got this call, and
was it Jason that called you?
Yeah, it's Jason and Michelle.
Yeah.
And they heard crickets in the background. It's like, where are you right now? It was really funny. Yeah, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't tell them, because, like I said, it was a very personal trip, but I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm traveling during this pandemic. You know, I didn't want them to be like, oh, well, you're gonna. Maybe.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah,
I forgot that was a thing. Yeah, you weren't allowed to travel during the pandemic.
You weren't allowed to travel. So I was hassled at the airport.
So that's why you were getting pushed back at that time as well. Then,
yeah,
because it was just all so unknown, and
exactly.
Everyone was doing the wrong things and traveling or not traveling. We all wearing masks.
So I had to give Jason my answer like the next day, but I needed a COVID test to leave Costa Rica to get back into Canada. Right. So I couldn't say yes, but I didn't want to tell him where I was. Right. And it was just kind of funny because it came out at some point. Right. And I had to call and be like, by the way, guys, the reason I can't say yes at this very second is like I'm waiting for this negative COVID test. Right. So I can fly home and join you guys. Right. And Jason was pretty funny about it. He was like, oh, you're putting my whole crew in jeopardy. You know, he's just a really funny guy. Yeah. But it was, I mean, my whole life changed after that. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely learned a lot about myself and coming down here and just going through that experience and meeting the people that I met. And it's funny, like with the amount of meditation and yoga and things that I had practiced prior to coming here, I think it was like a bit of a interesting reality check and kind of a wake up call in that, like, you know, life doesn't have to revolve around these practices as much as like I had done it up until then. I think it was like good for me to combat some of my mental health and like anxiety issues. Right. But then once I felt resolved and stuff, I think after leaving like the island, I was just like, cool, I'm good. I don't even think I've done yoga really since I've come back from here.
Interesting. Yeah, but it's a tool that you possess.
It's a tool that you have when you need it. Right. And like I still do it when if I I'm getting anxiety or something like that, or even if I just want to like drop in and like try to figure out a solution to like an issue that's happening in my family or a relationship or something like that. Like meditation is a great tool for that, for you to take a minute, focus on your breath, and then, you know, stop like living in your head so much and just see what answers you come to.
I've picked it up a lot. I pretty much meditate once a day, at least during the weeks when I'm at work. And I'll knock out like 15 minutes. And the goal is generally to not think or to just stop the thoughts.
Right. Or to like not get so fixated on one thought or let it trail off into to the next and the next. You kind of just let them like, enter your mind and then kind of float away.
Right.
And see if you can have a moment or two of non-thought, which is very relaxing. Once you get like that 20 seconds of you realizing like, oh shit, I haven't even been thinking. I've been so focused on my breath and the sensations in my body that that everything that like you think is such a big deal prior to that, it's kind of like not really relevant.
Yeah, it's very, very relaxing to get even 20 seconds of no thought. Like,
it's amazing.
It's amazing how far that can go. I mean, the 15 minutes really, it goes a long way. And it's not like it's 15 minutes of stopping to think. Like the first 5 minutes are just me. It's just thoughts flying at me, like, because I'm in my normal life working, and then it's like slowing them down. So it's like the last 10 minutes is where I kind of like, it get like deep into the practice.
100%. Yeah, it takes a good chunk of time to just work through what's coming up, and then you drop into a state. Right. And like I've had, especially during COVID, when I had months on end to just hone in on this. Like I remember being at the park at like 6 a.m. and I'd always have this one spot where the sun would kind of poke through the trees, and just like I'd have these moments, like could be like 15, 20 minutes of just like the most blissful, relaxing, just like expansive, emotional, like these bursts of just like amazing feelings that I can't really describe to people unless you do that for that long, Yeah. And like once you experience those sensations and you know what they feel like, you know what you're capable of, then dropping in for 5 minutes before work, you can go straight to that place. You don't have to like work through so many thoughts to kind of get there. It's like it's always there ready for you. You just have to know what it is that you're trying to get to, and then a 5-minute meditation could be more impactful than an hour-long one if you know what you're trying to do. Right. Yeah.
Huh. So I have a question, because as I've meditated and practiced it, one thing I find that works is I concentrate a lot more on my hearing.
Okay.
Right?
That's interesting.
So it's like to sort of ground me in the moment. It's like, what can I actually hear right now? It could be like some, like the AC buzzing over there, or I can hear like the girls in the office back there, or oh, here comes a car down the road. And I'm just sort of listening, right? Whereas I wouldn't necessarily pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because sound guys on set, it seems to be the more calming and peaceful position. And and sound guys generally tend to be, calm,
pretty chill.
I'm just wondering if is that a thing with sound guys where they're more meditative and more into that, or am I just making something up there?
No, I think, I guess it depends from which area you like how you become a sound guy and why. Right. Because there's people end up doing sound for many different reasons. Like some people are like electricians or know a lot about like the technical aspect of like the gear, or some people are musicians. Some people are just passionate about film and they don't really know what to choose, and it just so happens that they just end up doing sound. I have a background in like working in recording studios, and I'm a musician as well, but like I built a home studio because I wanted to learn to record myself, and that was like in 2008. And from 2008 to 2013, I had pretty much done everything. I'd worked in recording studios, radio stations, live sound. And then I lucked out and I got this internship where I met this person who got me on set. So my background is pretty versatile in that like I would create, like the music that I would create is very meditative. That's just kind of naturally what I was gravitated towards. And then my experience in live sound, like I know how to make a band really, really pop, and make the vocals stand out and that kind of stuff. So like my approach when working in the film industry and doing what I do now, I think that like putting my headphones on and only hearing what's happening on set, as opposed to like someone can be right beside me and I wouldn't be able to hear anything that they're
Right.
saying. I'm very like tapped in and
Right.
like glued to what I see, like either on my monitor or like what's happening on set. And I think that, yeah, for me, that's a pretty meditative experience just in and of itself, in kind of being in my own world essentially. And you know, yeah, zoning out what's happening and just focusing on one thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So you did live sound. Interesting.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah.
That's actually why I got into sound in the first place. Yeah.
Is that right?
So that's what I had spent a few years doing before getting into film. And I love working with bands and I love listening to live music.
Yeah.
So if you're the one that's
Mixing it
and responsible for making them sound good, and then like when you kind of, you know, hit the mark and like they realize how good they sound and the crowd is like really enjoying themselves and you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that.
Right.
It's really, really rewarding, and it's like it's very like a immediate satisfaction in that moment. So like having done that for a few years and like knowing like naturally what sounds good and what people want to hear, having done that prior to working in film, I mean, making a band sound good versus making a voice sound good, I think it's a little bit, there's a lot of factors at play on set. There's like sounds that like, you know, that you need to be mindful of like on any film set that are out of your control, but to make like a voice stand out in the midst of that and like placing microphones so that they sound the best in not so favorable like wardrobe and stuff like that. Like if you can make something really pop and sound pristine in, you know, in the most challenging and hostile environment possible. And like when I hear it in my headphones, I'm like, fuck, that sounds so good. Then when it plays back on the screen, like I've gotten calls back being like, this sounds amazing. You know, so it's really satisfying. But it took me the time in working and doing like stuff prior to working in film to really cultivate that kind of like that natural ability to decide like, you know, what sounds good to people, and like other people who maybe don't necessarily have a musical background and just got into doing sound because it was like the only position on set that no one wanted to do, but don't have that ability or hadn't really honed in on their hearing skills over the years, then I might listen to sound from another mixer. I'm like, I mean, I don't think that like sounds as good as it could be, but who am I to say what they think sounds good, right? But like, yeah. So it just depends on how you get into it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you mix at all? Like movie mixing?
Like in post, you mean? No, mainly because with the amount of time that I spend working on set, the only time I have available to work on things in my studio might be a day here, a day there. So I've only ever said yes to, lately it's only been like commercials and things like that. They only take me a day to work on because like films can take weeks, if not a couple months to really dial in, and like then like the deadlines get really intense, and like if I start on a project and then all of a sudden I get called on a film, that's not really practical for me to balance being on set and having to meet these deadlines. And I learned that the hard way a couple times. So I've like since just not, if I ever get offered an opportunity to mix a short film or a feature or even do dialogue editing or Foley editing or Foley recording, any of it, I just pass it along to people who do that full time. And if it gets slow and I have a day or two available and a commercial comes my way, right in that window, then I'll say yes to it, because a commercial's pretty quick. It's just like cleaning up some dialogue, putting some music underneath, maybe sound effects or two, and then you're
That's
good.
pretty much it.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But also in doing post, like I know, like I've done a lot of dialogue editing in the past, and doing that in post, like I know what can be removed in post and what can't. So certain sounds, like maybe some rustle in the lav or a bit of wind or like an AC that can't get turned off. Like I know whether or not that can be removed in post based on my experience. So like when I'm on set and people ask, oh, do we have to turn that off, or like, is that too scratchy? I'm like, it's actually fine.
Yeah. You just know from experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you get calls afterwards saying how good it is, because I feel like, I feel like that's one of the director's main worries is the
Yeah.
sound, right?
Yeah.
Especially when they, see the wind blower or the helicopter and they're like,
100%.
"Are you sure you can't hear that? Like, what the hell? Like, I can't, shoot
Yeah.
this take." And
Yeah.
it's an interesting department, the sound department, because it's so
It is.
small.
It's so small. There's never more than 3 people in the sound
Right.
department, right? And nobody other than the director and the script supervisor and the odd producer, someone that might come in that might request some headphones.
Right.
No one on set is listening or knowing what you're doing at
Right,
all.
right.
And you're doing it in such a way that you're not interfering with other
Right,
departments.
right.
So, you might only have, like, they might be lighting a scene for an hour or two, and then, and then once they're ready to roll, that's when it gets all quiet.
Right.
And then that's when you can hear whether or not something like it needs to be turned off. Because in
Right.
the meantime, you're
can't.
you're listening around, you're kind of trying to see.
But there's so much noise with people walking all over.
Exactly. So that's
Yeah.
why once it does quiet down finally,
Yeah.
and then it kind of, then the
hits
eyes
you.
are on us to do our job, and then it looks like they're waiting on sound all the time. That's why it's like, oh, we're waiting on sound again. But
Huh.
it's really because we only do our jobs when everybody else stops.
Right.
So, but
Interesting.
like,
I never thought about that. Actually,
Yeah.
you can't really tell that the AC is
you
on
really
until
can't.
everything stops.
Or
and
a
it's like-
clock ticking,
Right,
Or
right.
or just like some weird sounds that you don't even know where they're coming
Right,
from, and then it's
right.
like, well, you should have been doing this the last like couple hours while we were setting up. I'm like, I didn't hear it. I really, really didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Funny.
But then also, yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, like doing your job in such a way where, like, you're not interfering with other departments either. So you're like, you're working with grip and lighting. Like, the boom off should be on set as they're lighting the scene to keep an eye out for any potential like shadows
Right.
or things like that. Because
Right.
if like that can fall on our shoulders a little bit,
Right.
where if like they lit the scene and then all of a sudden there's shadows cutting across the actors' faces,
Right.
and we weren't testing or
Right.
doing that kind of stuff
Right,
beforehand,
right.
then I'll take the blame for that.
Right,
or like,
right.
but
Interesting.
other things, a bit out of my control sometimes.
It's true. I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. I never thought that the boom guy should be on set when they're lighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where the actor's going to be, where can I be, sort of scenario.
Yeah.
So how much of audio is seeing, right? And I mean that, I guess, from my perspective. What were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
No. I'm just listening. I'm thinking about what I was going to say next.
Yeah, because we live in the digital age, and we have waveforms that we can see.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, and I think because I saw something the other day on one of the social media sites where before people were actually playing back audio, there was some machine that allowed them to record themselves talking, and it would sort of like write it out. And this was before playback was invented. And then apparently what they found was a bunch of this writing, and they sort of like re-engineered it to get the sound out so you can actually hear people's voices, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I can't. It was
That's kind of new to me. I'm not really sure. Is that, do you know if it's an older technology or if it's something that's pretty
It was before
recent?
Thomas Edison, because Thomas Edison
wow.
was the
That's pretty
one
far
who
back.
invented the playback. I don't know if
Yeah.
he stole it from Tesla. I don't know the whole history there, right? But
Yeah.
but it was just interesting because this was before him. It was some other machine. I can't remember what it was called, but what struck me and what I want to get from you is sort of that it was I guess this written thing that sound waves produced, and then they were sort of able to re-engineer it to hear the sound waves, which is what we do digitally now, right? When
Right.
we record into the mic, it
Yeah.
becomes these digital bits
That's
of
right.
energy, and
Yep.
then the digital bits of energy are then played back for us to hear the sound,
Essentially.
and then we can see those digital bits.
Yep.
So I don't
Do you know
know
if like this device was kind of etching or encrypting
Yes.
the microphone signal into some sort of like, do you know what those what it looked like? Did he show you a picture or anything
Yeah,
like that?
it wasn't words. It was
Okay.
like etched. Etched is the good word for it. Though.
Right.
That's kind of what it
Okay.
was doing. It was
Yeah.
etching something.
Well, I mean, was it a disc?
No, it was like paper,
Oh,
papyrus.
interesting. Because
kind
if you
of
look at
cardboardish.
because I've seen like macro images of what it looks like when they basically put a vinyl or back in the days, I think it was made of ceramic or something like that. But they put that on like a spinning wheel,
Right.
and then we would yell into a microphone or talk into a microphone like this, and then there's like a little needle that would inscribe all the waveforms from my voice into this spinning ceramic disc,
Right.
and you can see like it looked like it was such a cool picture because it was such a close up that it actually looked like you're looking into a valley. That's how like close this thing was, and you can almost see like kind of like a rock face, like on it was. You can see where the voice was etched in, and I don't know. I'm not sure if it was the same thing, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's.
I'm really curious.
Yeah, it was quick little social media swipe kind of thing, and I never heard about that before actually. But yeah, I mean, like, because even sort of when you're mixing, you're looking for the red, make sure you're not peaking, sort of thing. Right. So it's like more of a visual.
It's a visual thing, but it's also like, I mean, I could look at an audio meter and just do my job that way. Like if I'm secluded in a room and I'm listening to what's happening on set. And I don't have picture, I can do my job and look at these meters, make sure nothing's peaking, make sure everything's at a pretty healthy level.
Right.
But it helps when I have picture and I can actually match what I'm hearing to what I'm seeing.
Right.
Because I could know whether or not what I'm capturing is realistic to what's happening on screen. So if it's too loud even, or if I'm capturing in a way where it's an extreme wide. And we have the lavs on, so there's always going to be a microphone that's like really close in proximity. So it's going to be a little bit larger than life all the time. But on a wide shot, we got to make sure the boom is kind of at a distance that matches what you're seeing on screen. And like what I like to do is it's funny, I have more ear fatigue. There's one ear that I can't hear in more than the other one because I'm always monitoring with one headphone on.
Okay.
Because I like to basically hear what I'm seeing from. It's nice to have it in one ear, but then I like to have the open environment in the other ear because I'm basically mixing what I'm hearing with what you would be hearing when you're watching it back on a screen. So like,
I see what you're saying.
When I hear like when I have both my headphones on and I'm like hyper focused on what I'm listening to, all those background noises that you hear that like don't end up being problematic, like even the scratchiness on a wardrobe or like everything basically, it's so over amplified in my headphones that it can be like overwhelming to me, where I think I'm like, oh my god, this sounds horrible, like these sounds are like super distracting and it's taking away from what I'm how natural the dialogue is supposed to sound and stuff. And really when I take like one headphone off and I just kind of like keep the other one loose on for short periods of time, I realize a lot of those sounds like aren't even that audible, and you can kind of get away with a lot more because like when I play back if there's a dialogue track in particular or a scene that was really problematic, and I'm really worried about it, I would take it home and play it back for my speakers at home, and a lot of those like little subtleties like don't make their way across from the speaker cones to your ears because there's air. Like in between the speakers and your ears.
And that makes you feel better than when you hear it.
Yeah, so the way I was able to mimic that and recreate that scenario at home was to just keep one ear open. Right. And that's how like I quality control and make sure that what I'm sounding is like realistic to what I'm seeing on screen. And not to like freak out about like little tiny things that you can't really control.
But like you're saying, because it's like when you have the headphones on, it's so you're so focused on that voice, and it's just so up front and center. But that's not how it's going to be in the mix, right? It's going to be mixed in with ambient sound,
exactly,
and it's going to sit, where it sits in relation to all the other sounds,
exactly.
So it's not going to be like up front and center. So you're like hearing all of this like stuff connected with that won't really come into play.
And it's also mix. Like the constant switching between having both headphones on, maybe going like this for a little while, like not like avoiding ear fatigue. So you keep your hearing fresh all the time, and you do the same thing in a recording studio. That's why when you go into a studio, some of the bigger ones, you have multiple speakers so that you can A/B. This is what it sounds like coming from, like your near fields where you're doing your mix referencing and like where it sounds the best. But then you're going to switch to a set of speakers that mimic car stereos, that mimic laptops and stuff like that.
Right.
Because if you listen to one set for too long, then your ears get really used to them. So you kind of got to A/B them all the time to keep it fresh. So same thing on set for me is to just constantly change up how I'm hearing things. Sometimes if I get really confident and I know it's sounding good and my ears hurt, I'll just go like that for a little while, even though there's a take happening.
Right.
But and then I put them back on. That's fine.
I'm sure you're keeping an eye visually, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time in headphones. I mean, I feel like having on headphones itself is a meditative experience.
100%.
You know, because it just closes out a lot.
Yep.
You know, and maybe that's why I'm on this whole sound guy meditation connection thing. You know.
Well, people don't bother you when you have headphones on.
That's true too.
And like people, you know, they'll say something, and sometimes I'll just pretend I didn't hear it. I got my headphones on. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Meanwhile, you have the mic and hear everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So, how many films you worked on in your life? 10 and a half years now in production?
10. Started production in 2013, so this will be my 11th year going into it. Mm-hmm. And in that time, I've done about 20 features. Mm-hmm. So, you know, full feature, like not like 1 or 2 days on.
Right. Full feature.
About 20 of them.
Right.
And then maybe like 15 or so short films. Mm-hmm. And then probably like maybe a few hundred commercials, corporate videos, docs, all that kind of stuff. I think the days are probably in the tens of thousands at this point.
Oh yeah, total.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, man, that is crazy.
Yeah, and the films are pretty all over the place too. I've done like things from Christmas movies to horror movies to adventure and thriller and everything in between. So, and each one of them brings their own sets of challenges.
Right.
And, some of them are, you know, after doing some of the bigger ones where you might have like 7 or 8 people per scene.
Right.
That's where it really gets complicated.
I was just thinking of Blue Iguana. I was going to ask you.
Oh, Blue Iguana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was multiple scenes, I guess, with like 8 or 9 people at the table and stuff.
There was a couple scenes where I think we were pushing 7 or 8 people.
Yeah. And it was just you and it was Adam at the time?
Adam McKay.
Yeah.
Who was very... He has a background in photography and camera work and stuff.
Right.
So he was, I think he might have boomed once or twice on something.
Interesting.
But this was a very new experience for him.
Right.
And he took a booming master class.
Okay.
Like right before.
Well done, Adam. I'm impressed. A booming master class. Yeah.
I haven't listened to that film, but I heard it sounds really good.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it either, to be honest. Yeah.
But yeah, like
that's quite a lot of people to track.
Well, exactly. And I think that's where like our expertise really comes in, because laving one person and having a boom on one person isn't really, if you have a basic understanding of audio and you know how the gear works and you can place a lav mic and you could either put a boom on a stand and just click record and make sure it sounds good. Like that's not the most challenging thing. It gets really hard when you start to compound like having multiple actors, having to coordinate wireless frequencies, having to like track people down when like somebody might go like we might block a scene in a certain way and we're not shooting a character, like he's off camera,
right? But
I didn't really realize, so he might be off talking to crew or maybe be in the bathroom or something like that, and then I realized, oh fuck, his mic is on. So like just keeping track of like the little things like that, and like not only making sure one lav sounds good, but like 8 of them,
right?
And then like watching levels across the board and making sure all that sounds really good. It's like really satisfying when I do a scene like that, when there's that many characters, and I can sleep at night knowing that I nailed that,
right?
And like the only thing that would ever make it challenging for me, I've mastered most things at this point, but every now and then there's a wardrobe that like throws you a curveball.
Right.
It's just really, no matter what you do, there's just no place you can hide a mic.
No easy spot.
Yeah, and like that's when I start getting stressed. And then also when it's windy, I have a little bit of stuff I can do to like dampen some of that wind noise. But then if it's strong enough, you're still gonna hear it. Like it gets kind of stressful. I'm already getting stressed just thinking about it. Yeah.
That wind is rough too, right?
Because
it's like one of those things that you do not have. You have zero control kind of with the wind.
Exactly. And there was sometimes on Blue Iguana where, you know, we were shooting forget exactly where it was, but there's a couple nights in there where it got a little bit windy.
Yeah.
And again, same thing, like what I was saying earlier about it sounding more amplified in my headphones. A lot of the time, the wind that I'm hearing is actually the wind coming into my headphone.
Right?
Yeah. So I have to like go like this, like really push it down so that there's no wind creeping in. Because then you can't really tell whether or not it's like a mix of both. Because I know some of it is happening on the lab,
right?
But then I realized, remember, there was this one short film that I did where I thought the whole film was ruined because I thought there was wind noise over the whole thing.
Right.
But when I listened back to it, there was nothing.
Right.
And it was what was happening, like coming into my headphone, which is just trippy.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, even with doing the podcast, you know, I'm like, did that sound work? Did I record it right? Pretty sure I didn't.
Are you rolling right now?
Yeah, I'm sure. Hope so. And then, you know, and then you play it back. It's like, yeah.
I know.
It's good.
It can be very stressful when the other thing, I mean, you know, you're really relying on these recorders to make sure they do the job for you.
Right.
Yeah, because if like
every now and then I'll do a glance.
Yeah, to make sure the battery didn't die. Are we running on battery right now, or is it
going?
Is it
I
power?
got hooked up to the laptop.
Yeah, because that'll happen sometimes too, where like, you know, the recorder, you just might not be keeping an eye on what the battery level's at. Right. You're like, oh, I'm good for a few hours, and then a few hours go by. And then it dies on you mid take. And if it's not a good recorder, it doesn't really save the file for you. Then if you lose an hour long interview like that'll cost you your reputation and your job. So like redundancy is very important. Right. So I have a backup recorder running the entire day.
Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So on my cart that I have my recorder that I'm using to multi-track and record all these separate audio channels. And then I also have a secondary recorder that's recording a 2-track mix of what I'm basically the mix of all 8, essentially. Right. And I hit record on that at the beginning of the day, and then it runs the entire day. And if I like happen to miss a take, very rarely has it ever happened, but on the Nicolas Cage movie we shot here, there was a time where they rolled, and I was taking a lav off of Ernie Hudson, the guy from Ghostbusters, and like they yelled cut, and my boom op looked at my cart and realized I wasn't there. Right. and we had to take another take, but I mean, there was a scene, but I didn't roll on Nicolas Cage. Right. Can you imagine that? Like, and it wasn't like, you know, I told Jeff, I kind of whispered, like, I don't want to cause any alarms or anything like that, but like we missed one of his lines. Right. And it's kind of a big deal in my opinion. Right. Like, we didn't tell Nicolas Cage why. Right. We had to do it again, but that was like, I think just not realizing, I think maybe a mix of the AD and the boom op thinking that like I'm always rolling, which I am. Right. Like when they yell roll sound, a lot of the time, like I just tell Reed, my boom op, I'm like, I'm always rolling. Right. Like if you don't hear me slate into the mic and saying sound speed, just yell rolling sound because I'm always there. Right. It's very, very rare. And like out of the 6 movies that we did, that was the only time where that happened once. Otherwise, it's good. But it's funny because Reed he's like, I hope Marco's rolling right now, and like every now and again, I'm not. Right. But it's the only time that happened.
So in that situation, then did you have to go to your backup recorder and send them that?
I didn't have a backup recorder at the time.
You didn't. So it was a completely mistake. Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. You could sneak that under there, you know. And hey, we got to do that take again. Yeah. No one needs to know why. Yeah. Yeah. So redundancies. So we're gonna have to wrap this up soon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But what's your plan? What's your, the end of this year? I didn't see you this year. It's the first time I'm seeing you this year, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always get excited when I get a message from you because there's a couple times at the end of 2022 and maybe once this year where you had reached out. That's because there might have been a production that come through on the island that needed a sound guy from off island or something like that.
Correct.
I don't know what the situation was, but.
Well, we only have a couple of sound guys here, right? So if they're busy.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, so, it's like, Marco, we got to fly you in, baby.
I would love that if that ever happens. Yeah. I mean, that, my plan for the end of this year is just to enjoy the holidays and kind of relax a little bit. Like the strike really affected a lot of people all over the world, really. But like, I was lucky in that I was pretty busy up until November, and then I'd never been so slow in my life.
Really?
Like from November till now. try not to stress about it. That's why I'm here.
Right,
Kind of came to kind of chill out a little bit, but really hoping that like 2024 is going to be like that year that everybody needs to kind of get get things moving again.
I think so, right? It's going to take a little while for everything to like get back in motion, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because I think it seemed most people I spoke to, it played the opposite way of you. There wasn't a lot up until November,
right?
And for us as well,
yeah.
And then after November, then we just got a ton of stuff.
Interesting.
Been super busy, but I mean, you just never know.
You really never know.
Yeah.
And
who knows what 2024 will bring? So, what you just plan to just make? You'll be in Toronto making some films. Maybe I'll give you a call, fly you down.
Love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm basically because again, I run a recording studio as well. So like, there's two things that I do simultaneously. So sometimes I get really lucky, and if it's not busy in film, it just happens to be busy at the studio at the right time. Right. And the last couple of months hasn't done either. Right. So it's, I think now I'm actually, my next big move is I have a really good website in the works, like something I've been wanting to do for years and years.
Like a personal
passion? Like just like it's my own my location sound website that I've been doing on my own on like Wix and stuff. Right. But like this one here is going to be way more dialed in, and if somebody comes in and searches Toronto mixers and stuff, like it'll be one of the first names that come up and stuff like that. So I have a decade of experience now, and that's going to look great on the website. So I really hope that like having this website done in time for this new year, if that like I'm going to basically go back and message pretty much everybody I've ever worked with, and just kind of like see if I can rekindle some old contacts.
And you have a new website to share.
Exactly.
With them
yeah. So that's going to be my big move in the new year.
Yeah, you can get a lot of traction with that. You know, when you put the time and effort into the website, and you know who you're targeting, and super cool. You should definitely share that with me.
Definitely.
When you get that done. But yeah, I hope to see you in 2024. I'm glad you're back. What's it like being back?
It's satisfying. It's relaxing. It's there's a part of the island that feels like a second home to me now after leaving for that long, and just kind of coming back and not working. Right. I was always like working. True. Even though we had weekends off, I was still like still
were working. Buddy.
Like it wasn't like it wasn't like this. This was a really nice visit. Right. And I visited some old friends, and it was just super wholesome. Cool. So I think I'm gonna do this more often.
Yeah, man. I love that you're here and that you just sort of randomly came. I ran into, I don't know if you remember James and Connor from the construction team.
Oh, Connor
Steele.
Oh, no, I don't remember them.
Anyway, they're here, and I ran into them one morning.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? Like, I did a double take. Like, what the hell are you guys doing here? Right? Yeah. And they're like, we just came down. We're working with one of the construction teams here. I'm like, that's so cool.
That's
like,
cool. Do you know where they're from? Are they from Toronto?
James and Connor, I don't know. I'm not sure where they are from actually. Okay. But it was super cool to see them because I love that people love Cayman. Yeah. And that they wanted to be here, and they're like, hey, let's just go work in Cayman for a couple of months, which is what they're doing.
That's awesome.
That I think that was such a special experience having you guys come here and then sort of merge with us and give and take, and we learn and you learn, and then we leave, but connections were made that are forever. And Agreed. You're a little bit more aware of Cayman, and that you can make other people more aware of Cayman. And we love it when people love it here, and it's not for everyone. Yeah. But Canadians really seem to love Cayman.
It's funny enough. I was just talking to someone this morning, and they told me that they're about to build a Tim Hortons here.
That's right. They are. That's actually awesome. I even had a taster of it the other day.
Really? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's I mean, the sign is up now and everything, so crazy. they're building. So I mean, I think I actually sent a photo to Jeff when I was because I got the taster of the donut or whatever, it was some other stuff, and I sent a picture to Jeff. Oh man, Tim Hortons in Cayman.
It was crazy. I know we got to wrap up soon, but when I started to post that I was down here, just the response I got from the production crew, like people from Toronto, being like, "Are you going back to the island, or are you just like like is that not a thing?" And a lot of people were just like, you fucker, like we're just so jealous right now because it's so cold there right now. Right. It's really cold, so it was nice to come back and get a good 4 days of just some heat for me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. This is the Cayman cold. Yeah, he called it heat.
Oh my god,
legit. Cool, man. It was really great to have you on the show, and great to run into you.
You too, dude.
And hopefully we can work together in 2024.